I could be wrong, but did you once say that you used the same Jang roller for most direct seeded crops? No, I did not say that. If you use different rollers, how come the rollers don't specify how far apart the seed will be for each particular roller? It says how many rows to put on a bed, but not how far the seeds stay away. Will be in a certain row. Any way to calculate that? And do you use any potential? Do you see any potential in industrial hemp in a market garden? Think it's worth it? Thanks so much. Great question. So yes, there is a way to do that with the roller. I spent, I don't know how long it was. Maybe it was 10 hours of time that I put into 10 to 20 hours when we did when Diego and I started selling the Jang seeder from Modern Grower, and we sell the Jang. We also sell what we call the JP5, which is essentially we assembled it. There was no JP5 until we I took some advice from friends of mine, Jeremy Mueller and Eric Schultz, and we found a way to kind of hack the Jang 3, the JP3, by adding 2 new shoes and whatever. Anyways, so we put that together, and then we talked to Jang, and they basically assembled it for us, and now we sell it. And so when we did that, I had a ton of R&D to do with what densities would work. So we were looking for, mostly for greens, doing 10 rows, and for other root crops to do 6, because there's five shoes or hoppers on the Jang, so you can have 3 by just dropping out these 2. And so I configured most direct seed crops that we do to 6 and 10 rows. So I did a lot of playing around with seed. And so what I would do is it was super, super tedious. But what I did was I laid down a 10-foot measuring tape on the ground. And then I took just a single row Jang. And I had some data to start with. Like I had some benchmarks. Like I knew approximately how much seed I needed to drop for radish, because when I did radish on the farm, I did 7 rows. And so I wanted to convert it to 6. So that means I wanted to drop a little bit more seed to get the same amount of seed on the ground spaced over 6 rows. And so I just dropped down a 10-foot long measuring tape, and then took a Jang JP1 and sorry, my wife and daughter, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but took a JP1, put the hopper in, put the seed in, I just elastic banded a little bag to the bottom of where the hopper drops the seed, and so it wasn't touching the ground. I put it above the ground, and then I just run it the 10 feet, and then I would take out that seed, and I would use a really fine scale and measure how much seed it was. And then I just had a spreadsheet opened that did the calculation for me. So it basically, I'm using a 10-foot metric. How much seed do I drop? So then I could calculate how much I would drop at 50 feet, and then how much, and then I could just multiply rows, and then it would just show me a number. And so I'd say, okay, if I'm say targeting, say just for example, don't take this number literally, but if I was dropping 20 grams of seed on a 50-foot bed of radish with 7 rows, and I wanted to drop that same 20 grams over 6 rows, how do I need to increase a little bit per row to get there? And it's just all tweaking. I would be tweaking the sprockets on the Jang. It was tedious, man. Like it would take me, I remember when I really got into doing all that, like 8 hours, in 8 hours, it would take me to like really dial in just 1 or 2 crops. It's very, very tedious. So that's how I figured it out. Because when it comes down to greens, at least, like loose leaf greens that are cut greens, I'm not talking about like head lettuces or anything like that. In-row density only matters so much. It only matters on the fringes. So, if you've got your typical bell curve, you've got your medium, and then you've got your outliers. So it really only matters on the outliers. And that's where row variability, space between row variability makes the most difference in general. And so it was basically like drop a bunch of seed, and of course, like I said, you can have too much, but on the outlier you can have too little on the outlier. But generally, if you're broadcasting the seed in a spread out matter, you can get all your adjustments by just changing your row density, the space between your rows. So that's how I did it. No, I never said that I use one roller for all my crops. It's not true. For direct seeded crops with the Jang, I'm using the X24, the F24, the XY24, the YYJ24, the G12. And I'd say that's, for the most part, all the rollers I use. And then I have my sprockets set at 14 on the front and 9 on the back. And I set it up so that it never has to change that. Now, having said that, that's with the single row. With the 5-row Jang, there is some changing of that. It might just be taking that 9 to a 10. You have to look at it. If you go to Paper Pot Co., let me just see. I'm sure Diego still has that up. He manages all the stuff with Paper Pot Co. So just share my screen here. If you go to Paper Pot Co. and then you go to Farm Store, go to Jang Seeders, because we sell all these, go to the JP5, and we are out of stock. Oh, here we go. So this is the data that I spent a long time on, and I set it up so that for the most part you don't have to change the gears that much, because changing the gears is a pain. But I also set it up where, like, I tried to minimize everything. So with the JP5, you can do all these crops: arugula, carrots, lettuce, mustard, radish, red Russian kale, salad, turnip, spinach, and large spinach. You can do all of those by minimal adjustments. So you only need 2, 3, and 4 rollers. And then you're adjusting so JP5 does 2 passes on the bed, get you 10 rows or 6 rows. And so he made everything either go 10 or 6 rows. And then, trying to minimize gear changing. Actually, with the JP5, it's faster to change the gears than it is to change all of your rollers, because you got to change 5 rollers. One thing Eric Schultz did at Steadfast Farm is he has 2 complete sets of hoppers. I think he's got everything down to the X24 and the F24. I think that's what it is. And then he just changes his gears. And so he did further R&D to, come up with how do you get rid of all. And that's actually what I have. The only time I'm not using the X24, the F24 with this kit setup is on the spinach, which is the LJ24. And then adjusting that gear ratio to just to dump more seed. So yeah, that's how we do it. And then, if you go on the JP1, we did the same thing. I did the same data. Here we go. Boom. So it's all there. So on the JP1, yeah, YYJ24, XY, F, X, and the LJ. So you need more rollers on the JP1, but you only need 1 of each, right? And that's another reason why we made it so that on the JP5, we wanted minimal rollers, so that, because you have to get 5 of each, right? So we tried to make it as cost effective as we could. But that's